Hey,
Hey,
technology
yahoo!
is
Fantastic.
watching, and to Dr. G for her patience, so we'll get this sorted out. We are thrilled to have everybody here. Thanks to everybody who's live. Lots of nice, familiar faces. We wanted to take some time today, not a super long time, but just to address this issue that has become a big issue for us with our staff. And Debbie's been so kind to take a real leadership position in this and put out some great resources and doing some awesome work in this. So, Dr. G, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Hey, everybody. I'm so excited to see all these names I know. And we may at some point be visited by any of my four children who are home and the dog.
We want UV in this for sure.
Nice.
So, thanks for being here. What reason I asked you to come and talk tonight was that I know that this is a big issue for camps. We're heading into, I think, one of the most stressful seasons for camp directors, but it's being added to by the fact that they're finding that staff aren't showing up, or that staff are, coming to camp for the first day and then quitting, and all sorts of issues around anxiety and stress in our staff. And so I wondered if I know you do, so I ask. I wonder what you think are some of the things we can be doing now to set them up for success, so to deal with some of these issues that we know are coming.
There are a bunch of ways that we can reach out to staff. And I know that when I say that to camps, you feel like, oh my gosh, I can barely get my staff to do the things they absolutely must do, like fill out forms and things. I I actually have been hearing from the frontline staff who've been looking at the resources I'm developing, and they're saying that they feel that they would be even more engaged if they were hearing also not just about forms and not just about must-dos, but also about ways that camps are looking to get to know them better and support them. But whether or not they are going to engage with all the, everyone is not going to engage with every attempt that we make. What I really want to help leadership staff and year-round staff do in May is understand what's coming and help them show their staff what's coming in ways that they can get to camp more ready than they've been. In the survey that hundreds of you were kind enough to take that we put up on Summer Camp Pros, one of the questions that I asked was, how many of your staff show up on the first day rested and ready for camp? Overnight camp, day camp, doesn't matter. And what we saw is that more than 80% said, well, I should put that another way, only 18% said most or all show up
Hmm.
rested and ready. And that
Yeah.
actually over half said less than half or few or none of my staff show up rested and ready. And so just explaining how to show up rested and ready could be a really big deal. Kim Acock said, and she's totally right, we hire overachievers often at camp, which means that they don't just overachieve when they're interviewing with us or while they're with us. They tend to pack every day just like we do. And so they don't take some time between high school or between college and showing up at camp to rest. They do extra projects, they travel, they see family, they have lots of obligations, they try and cram in a course into 3 weeks or whatever else they're trying to accomplish. And they show up at camp running already full speed, having had no time to rest. And one of the best things I think you can do is share some information about ways they can really utilize, whether they have 3 days between what they're doing before you, or 3 weeks or longer, how they can carve out a little bit of that time for recharging and how they deserve that.
Yeah. And I think it's an important. I mean, you're setting the tone by, again, as you say, not just giving up forms and to-dos. You're setting the tone by, here are our expectations. Here are the things that we think are important. It really does build up that spirit of welcome that we love at camp. And the reason that many of us are there at camp is because of finding a comfortable place where we could be ourselves. So, do you think that there is? I mean, what I guess the easiest way to think about it is, what tools do we need them to have when they come? What are the things that they have to have in their brain that that gets them to us in better shape?
Anybody who's seen me on stage in the last year knows that I keep talking about this idea of uncomfortable versus unsafe.
Mhm.
And one of the issues that high school students and college students are hearing a great deal about, and I don't disparage this, I think it's wonderful, is safe spaces. A safe
Yeah.
space is a place where you can't be permanently harmed, where if something is going on that could really cause you damage, you get to say, hold up, this isn't okay with me. Unfortunately, a lot of the conversations that have been happening conflate the idea of being uncomfortable with being unsafe. And so every time someone is uncomfortable, they think what's happening here should not be happening. And camp is, as you and I have talked about, uncomfortable on purpose.
Yeah.
We're all about making people a little bit uncomfortable so that they can meet someone new, try something new, be away from their usual situation, and get to know themselves better and try things out. But that requires discomfort. Growing and learning requires discomfort. So I think one of the things I'd love to put in the heads of every staff person, and camps are really perfectly placed to do this as you're sending out information and get to know you texts and memes or anything you might just be dropping on your frontline staff, is what about this idea of, hey, remember at camp, we're all going to get uncomfortable on purpose. So you should pack some of your best strategies for managing how you feel when you're uncomfortable. And one of the activities that I've designed is this idea that is so simple to do, but can really change people's expectations about what they're walking into. I want staff to know, hey, there are moments at camp for sure that will be stressful. And you, staff person, are already an expert in your own stress. You know what it
Yeah.
feels like when you're stressed. You know what it feels like when you're too stressed. And you already know what you do to help yourself when you're stressed. So asking them to think about their positive coping mechanisms and helping them understand which ones will fit at camp. And then saying, bring the supplies you need. You know, if they are allowed to have a music player, an MP3 player, make sure you've got the songs on there that help you manage stress. If there's going to be time for your staff to exercise in their day, make sure they have with them what they need to exercise. If they're a knitter and there's an opportunity for knitting, and that's a positive stress management tool, then they should probably bring their knitting needles. And camp's all about saying, you know, hey, maybe this year we should have a knitting activity. And maybe we need starter needles for 8 kids, and that person can lead a knitting activity and talk about how it impacts their mental health positively. Mindfulness is so much a part of the staff's lives that getting them to teach it is pretty simple, but reminding them before they come to camp that that's a part of being at camp, I think will serve you and serve them and really set that tone that you're talking about, Travis.
Yeah, I think having comfortable tools or things that you can rely on, it gives them a little touch of home. One thing I've heard you talk about often is but the idea of touchstones, and you know, finding a place. We've specifically been talking about parenting, how kids need a parent as a touchstone. They go try things, but they come back. But in our situation with teaching our staff to manage the anxiety of this very stressful job, having a touchstone from a place of comfort that they can go to makes a lot of sense to me.
And we also on purpose take our staff out of their own comfort zones and their own usual patterns, because that's when often they develop to be the best version of themselves. But every single thing that they think about how to manage their own stress will inform how they help their campers when their campers are uncomfortable. That discomfort can be valuable is a great place to get them thinking about and engaging in conversation around, so that if they have pushback, they've a chance to work through that idea. But I totally agree with you saying, hey, if there is a thing or an idea or an activity or you know, anything or something you create, a space that you make for yourself that really brings you peace, then please find a way to move that to camp if it's at all possible. And that exercise will help them figure out on the very first day and on the 16th day and on the 42nd day how to say to a camper who's stressed, well, hey, you're an expert in your own stress management. When you felt like this before, what are some things that are camp friendly that you've done? And show me. I'm happy to learn. I'd like to do them with you.
Yeah. One of the most powerful things I've heard you say in the last little while is talking about not if, but when. So thinking about stresses, you know, it's not going to be if you get stressed or if you know, if you get in and over your head. It's when you're saying straight out to staff, it's when this is going to happen. So preparing them for the fact that it's not a failure to feel this. It's not a failure to be overwhelmed. It's not a failure to be anxious. But how do we get that idea to them with that if not if but when thought?
One of the things that I've been learning recently working with young adults from the stage is talking to them about imposter syndrome. And imposter syndrome is something that almost every counselor I've ever encountered has. They think everybody else you hired was probably a good hire. But if you really knew me, you would know I might not be as smart, helpful, creative, funny, talented as some of these other people here. And maybe I'm the one mistake you made in your hiring. And they're really worried that they are one screw up or one difficult situation away from everybody else realizing that they're not as good at this as someone thinks they are or thought they were. And so when they think, well, if something happens, then they'll know, it can be incredibly stressful. And staff and students and campers and ourselves spend a lot of time trying to manipulate the circumstances so we don't look bad. The problem is that can lead to a lot of poor decision making, a lot of what some people would call very good, very short-term decision making, but not very good long-term or even medium-term decision making. So when we say to staff, hey, when you have a kid that you don't know how to handle, or when a situation comes up and you're not sure what to do next, or when you are fried and snap at a kid, then we want you to think about what you will do when that happens. Then their job is to remember the strategies, not to hide that it happened, pretend it didn't happen, lie about it, do any of the things as if it would never happen. We've already said, we know that happens. One of the things I really like to do when I do staff trainings is I like, if it's possible at a meal or something, to send around a piece of paper and have everybody jot down how many camp years they have in any capacity, at that camp, at any camp, and then just do a little math and say, hey, between us in this room, we have 812 years of summer camp experience. There's pretty much nothing that could happen this summer that somebody here doesn't have a little expertise about. Everything that can go wrong this summer, somebody here has experienced. There's nothing new in a very reassuring way.
Yeah.
That idea of when something bad happens reduces a great deal of damaging stress. Some stress is useful, which is something else I've been talking about a lot this year, but that damaging stress, that crippling stress, that stress that makes you hide or lie about what's going on, talking about when something goes wrong can really reduce a lot of that.
Yeah. I know a camp director friend of mine was talking about her cousin or niece or something who had just been hired for the first time on senior staff, and she got a warning, I guess it was from her mom, saying, I don't think she's going to go to camp. I think that she's days, weeks away from when she's supposed to be at camp, and I don't think she's going to make it. And from talking to her cousin, it was that exact thing. It's like, I am not, I did well in an interview. I was able to present myself, but I'm not capable. And her temptation was to just walk away instead of approaching it. And I think that had the camp been more proactive with their first year leadership staff, first year counselors, same as I preach with first year families, how proactive we have to be, that they could have solved a lot of stress before that person even got there.
I think that's true. And I want to say something kind of controversial, because if I could wave a magic wand and have every adult staff person, so if there are day camp folks watching who have 16 or 17-year-old staff, it's a little different, but everybody 18 and older, I wish I could wave a magic wand and get their parents entirely out of the equation. But I want to say we can't, and we can even less so every single year. So since parents are going to take an active role in their kids, their young adults' summer, I think one of the best things we can do is arm those parents, usually through the staff member. I don't think we should be in the position necessarily of sending out resources straight to parents of staff, but sending to staff resources and asking them if they're interested to pass them on to their parents, so that parents know how to support their staff member at this real job, and how to say, oh yeah, I totally have empathy for your struggle, and turn from being a manager, which most parents of teenagers are, into being a mentor, which is the goal as a parent of a young adult, and you know, Travis, because you've gone through this process with your own kids of transitioning from like manager of, hey, do you have your stuff? And don't forget you have that interview. And what time are you going to bed? Because what time do you need to get up? To listening and maybe offering a little guidance, but mostly offering empathy. Parents don't know. They know we're supposed to get there. We know we're supposed to get there eventually, but we have no idea how without leaving our kids in the lurch. And there are a bunch of reasons that parents are too nervous, I mean, genuinely fearful about our young adults' mental health to just stop, to just get totally hands off. So just as camps have been great for years and years and years at guiding parents to parent through sending their camper to camp, I think offering some encouragement and some resources and some guidance about parenting your young counselor at camp will make camp's life easier and staff stronger.
Yeah. I think it's one of the things I've come to realize in my job and speaking to more parents than just the parents that know me as a camp director is that the underlying fear of messing up your kids, just the underlying fear and how much of parenting is unknown, and it's so scary because you just don't know what are going to be the things that make a mess of them. And I love that.
And there's no victory lap. You're not like, oh, you're 18 and a half and you got this GPA in your first semester at university, so peace out, see you on Instagram. Like, it feels like you don't have any idea when it's okay to take off all the training wheels, all the life preservers, and just go chill out on the beach with a book and let them swim.
Right. Did you have anybody send questions to you? I didn't get any myself, but I didn't know if you'd had any that had come up that you wanted to make sure you talked about tonight.
There's only one, and I'm happy to watch the comments too in case anybody has a topic they'd really like to talk about. And that was also about the first thing you asked me, actually, about what can we be doing now? And this person wanted to know, what can we be doing now to help our staff be less twitchy when they have to decrease their tech use?
Right.
And twitchiness is a real thing. I mean, if you've heard me talk, you know I'm all about those brain chemicals. But when we get stressed, one of the things we look for is oxytocin. Camp's a great place to get oxytocin because we get it from hugging people, and we get it from seeing people we like, and we get it from singing together and breathing together and eating together. But it happens to everyone at some point during camp that camp feels like they're the only person out, that everyone else is having those great oxytocin experiences, but I feel separate today for some reason. And in those moments, what I'm looking for is oxytocin from somewhere. Most young adults, most adults now too, get it from their phone. Because you get a little bit of oxytocin from notifications, texts, Snapchats, tweets, likes, all that. So how can we help staff to transition from however much tech they're using now to however much tech is appropriate to use while they're working for us at camp? And so just briefly, the first thing to do is just mention to them, make sure in a non-punitive way that they understand the opportunities for tech at camp, if there are any, and the opportunities for tech-free time and the structure around tech-free time at camp. So if I'm going to get to use tech only on the day that I leave my overnight camp and get to a signal once a week, then that's important for me to know. If I'm going to have it for an hour every night that I'm not on duty, whatever it is, if I'm going to have it as soon as I leave my day camp for 16 hours of my day, but not for 8, just make sure that they're aware of the realities, and then offering them some suggestions about how to monitor what they're doing now. Just take their own temperature, figure out their own metrics. And there's apps on every phone and every device to help them do that, to figure out their own metrics, and then help them a little bit to transition from where they are now to where they need to be when they get to camp. Even just mentioning it, that it's a good idea to do, is better than they have now, because they're somehow still, most people, shocked and amazed when they get to camp and you really meant it.
Yes. I meant you should definitely pack your bathing suit, and you are going to feel stress about phone stuff. Both of those things.
Wait, but I have to get in the water? And what do you mean I can't use my phone?
That's right. So just a couple more questions from me. For those of you watching, I appreciate the patience as we got things started. I had promised Dr. G would be about 20 or 25 minutes. So, plus I imagine people have had a long work day anyway. I was thinking about this period. Now we've got them to camp. We've front loaded really well. We've given them some good expectations, and they understand how things are going to go. Is there stuff during, as camp is running, past training and camp is running, is there stuff that we need to be watching for to see, those who are heading into distress or any of those, some warning signs?
So if all we needed to do to keep our staff mentally strong was do good staff training and then keep an eye on people, I think we'd already be there, because those are two things that camps are great at doing. So one of the things I'd like to see every camp do is to take advantage of the fact that Generation Z, and most frontline staff are Gen Z now because that's up to age 24, are great at advocating for themselves, better than any generation has been. And they have less, not no, but less stigma around mental health struggles. So putting your staff in charge of letting you know when they are not feeling their best, when they are struggling, without them necessarily knowing what the solution is, that's really valuable. Just as for, I hope, 10 or 15 years now, you've been saying, hey, often staff get ill at camp, get a cold, get a cough, get sick. If you're getting sick, please don't wait until you can't get out of your bunk. Please come, let someone in the health center know, let your supervisor know. If you're starting to feel under the weather, we would like a heads up. That we need to extend that explicitly to mental health, that the best guide for us about a staff person's mental health is that staff person, and they are adults and they are used to letting people in their lives know how they're doing. So if we're open to that, to hear that, then I think that will really help. But there are some things that we can do to keep an eye on the yellow flags to see if they're becoming red flags. Clear communication and transparency is really important. And the idea that you're going to keep an eye on someone without them knowing you're keeping an eye on them, you're robbing yourself of an opportunity to do better by them. Letting someone know, hey, I'm concerned because I care about you, because I see you, because I've noticed this, and here's why, and here's what I'm looking for. That actually supports the person and lets them know they're seen and they're cared about, and lets them communicate with you about those things. Oh, no, I understand why you might be worried about that, but actually that isn't a concerning sign for me. And then ask, hey, what should if I see what, then I should worry about you.
Right. Yeah, I love that self-definition of when. You give me the tools, because I've heard other people, we talked about Kim, heard Kim say, you tell me what are going to be the little rewards, the little boosts that you need that I can, in the $2 range or the $5 range, that things will make you happy, whether it's chocolate or, half-hour break, whatever it is. Let the people
Troll doll,
set that.
Whatever.
What's that?
Troll doll, whatever it is.
Yeah. something. Great. Well, I am so grateful for your time today and your insight into all of this. I've been watching the comments, and that's what I'm doing over here. And I haven't seen any other specific questions that have come up, but there'll be still a couple minutes to do that. But you've also taken all of this stuff and all the work that you've done in the last year on this, and you bundled it up so that camps can have a system for their own camp that they can get from you. Can you tell us a bit more about that?
Yeah, totally. And I really appreciate everybody's time this evening. I could speak about this for 4 hours without drawing breath, I think, because when every camp conference that I went to this year, what I heard from camp leadership was, hey, we really appreciated those materials you came up with last year to help us with parent anxiety about camp, especially new parents. But what are you going to do about staff anxiety? What do we do? How do you help us with staff mental health? And so that was why we did that big survey, and to address those issues specifically, and to address the the learning style of most Gen Z. The resources that I bundled up together that you're mentioning, I'm calling it Dr. G's prescription for preventing stressed out staff. Stress isn't necessarily bad, but stressed out, stressed beyond being able to function well at our jobs, that's the problem. Stress is to mental health as exercise is to body muscle. We need some stress to strengthen our mental health, but how do we strengthen mental health in ways that are really camp friendly and don't push our staff to the point where they feel overwhelmed and they can't get it done? And they feel like they're actually learning and becoming stronger instead of being oppressed. And Anybody, myself included, who's ever been frontline staff at camp, there are days where you just feel oppressed. Day camp, overnight camp, both things. Oppressed by 17 rainy days in a row, oppressed by it's always my camper who's the struggle, whatever. So one of the things that I think is really useful is to have a buffet of resources, because you're an expert in your camp. I'm an expert in youth development, and I'm an expert in mental health, but you are an expert in your camp culture, your camp needs, and the staff that you've put together this year. So I have these 25 resources. Many of them are video. Along with the videos are a bunch of printables. There are some activities that can be done at staff meetings, at staff training, that can be done one-on-one or in small groups as you're trying to teach a particular point. And there are some resources for year-round staff, for seasonal supervisors, and for seasonal frontline staff. And there are, and like I said, none of them take more than 6 minutes to digest. Most of them are more in the 3 or 4 minute range. I've tried really clearly to lay out a list of the content that's really easy to get for me, so you can see exactly what this is. And I'm hoping that, and I've had a lot of interest and a bunch of signups already from camps to say, hey, yeah, we'll take it. Because I want this to be affordable. If you get this for your staff, I don't want you to think, but I can only afford so many, so I'll only use it with certain people. So it's one price. You can have as many codes as you need for every staff person that you have and every volunteer that you might want to use this with. I've had some Girl Scout camps talking to me about using this with their volunteers. They span a real age range up into their 60s and 70s. And I think this can be really valuable for that intergenerational communication, staff to staff, as well as staff to camper. Some of those resources are teaching your staff when to worry about a camper or another staff person. What are those yellow flags? What do they look like? There's a vital sign check-in that you can be asking your whole staff to do once a week, or staff that you're worried about, you can be asking them to fill it out every single day if you and they think that would be valuable. Those take about 1 minute. There's something I stole straight from human resources in the corporate world, a get to know you for supervisors to understand the people they're supervising, what motivates them, what frustrates them, where they do well, if they're going through anything in their personal life that they think might bear on their work this year. What the name of this game, I think, is Removing Surprises. So Travis, I see a couple of comments going by. Can you read if I think there's a couple of ideas there that might be really useful.
Yes, for sure. Let me, if you don't mind, I just want to wrap this up, this piece, and we'll address 1 or 2 questions at the end. Is that okay?
Sure.
Talking about the program. So I want to say that I invited Debbie here because I have seen this package, and I've seen the amount of work that she's put into this, and I think it's an incredible service to the industry, this work that she's done. So I posted a comment with a link to this. If you go to where this is live, on your desktop or on your phone, you should be able to see how to get a hold of this stuff. I think it's really good. So I just didn't want to miss the opportunity to say everybody should look at this.
I really appreciate that. And I didn't develop this alone. 4 overnight camps and 2 day camps partnered with me and beta tested this, gave me a ton of feedback, and I have and am still until May 1st updating the resources to reflect all of those amazing suggestions from these professionals. And actually also, this is on a discount until May 1st. If you get in touch with me by May 1st, then instead of this being $1,450 for your whole staff for private camps, it's only $997. And for not-for-profit camps, I'm going to donate a portion of that back to your camp to try and really make this something that everybody can afford to do if it's useful to you.
That's brilliant. And on behalf of the industry, for whatever voice I have in the industry, I want to thank you for doing that. That's pretty awesome. So most of it's just comments are just about how much they're enjoying it and then the things that appreciate the help. One question that stands out is from Katrina. Do you have any suggestions for managing interpersonal relationship stress? Not relationship, just coworker relationship stress that.
So to handle that specifically, at the suggestion of a couple of camps, I actually developed a game that you can play during a staff meeting or during staff training called You Don't Know What You Don't Know. And in that game, the idea is this: you get people to sit down together who think they already have a lot in common. You look like me, or I relate to you, whether it's someone I know well or someone I've just made a snap judgment about that I think that we have a lot in common. I want them to sit down and I want them to reinforce that idea by finding in the first 2 minutes 3 things that they have in common. Try and find the 3 most interesting, unique things that they have in common. And then the rest of the exercise is about one of the 2 people. So person A sharing a really unpopular or surprising belief or opinion that they have. And then person B has to try and figure out why in the world they think that, why they think chicken is a terrible food, tastes awful when it comes in so many amazing, comes in so many amazing preparations or whatever. It can be anything. And then they have to figure out why, what's the experience that led them to that? What's the reason? Just to show us that no matter how much we relate to someone or how much we want to get connected to them, when they have a belief or an opinion that we really disagree with, we can feel pretty betrayed. And the guidelines for the discussion afterwards are about why was that so hard to hear? And why does it take so long to get to the reason behind the reasons? And how can we do that when we're in conflict with someone and feeling betrayed and frustrated because we feel like we're right or we shouldn't be in conflict with this person?
Yeah, that's great. An awesome idea. Well, Dr. G, thank you for being here. Again, thank you for creating this awesome resource. My recommendation heartily to everybody who's watching and people are going to watch the follow-up video is to go and check this out. It is just for the investment of your own stress. This bundle is so worth it. And as I say, it's built with so much intention specific to what we need that it's awesome, tailored for
this
executive.
This is really going to make leadership life easier, but also make, I think, camp staff stronger. And I just wanted to say that there is a different version for day camp than for overnight camp, because although I think a lot of us feel like we understand both, it's a little like Spanish and Portuguese. If you speak one, you can get along in the other, but they're different languages.
Right. Yep. 100%. Cool. Well, thank you everybody for watching. We appreciate this, and check out the link in the comments so you can investigate this material. And so many great things tonight, Debbie. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thanks, you guys. I appreciate it. I'm putting my email address in the comments in case anybody has any questions you want to reach out.
Well, thanks. Take care, everybody. Good night.
Good night.